Elon Musk was recently entering a vehicle surrounded by security guards, and people were yelling out to him, and he said, "Guys, I am not ever again going to do any signings." And the reason for this is that over the weekend, in a live discussion, Elon mentioned that the threats to his life are actually very significant. Assassination risk, quite significant. There are a series of stories that I think highlight the escalation of cultural collapse. Now, I've often said that I think a civil war or something to that effect is coming, but I'm open to being wrong. And it's not to say that I don't think there will be a conflict. It's that perhaps it will be something we've not yet seen before. Perhaps what we're actually witnessing is a breakdown of social cohesion, which results in something, some kind of conflict, but not necessarily a civil war. And the reason for this isn't just the breaking news stories, of which there are many. The new Twitter revelations are shocking, and we have more information. Katie Hobbs out of Arizona contacted Twitter to censor posts while as Secretary of State and also while running for office. But it's not just that. Power outages in North Carolina, intentional vandalism. Right now, many on the left are saying that it was drag protesters. Conservatives who are upset about grooming events or things of that nature have been accused of shooting at substations and taking out the power grid. The police said there's nothing to indicate that's the case, but that's what they're still asserting. And then, of course, along with these news stories, I have my personal experiences and the news that sort of surrounds the work we do. And so this will be probably a bit of a hybrid, but I want to say this. I don't intend for this segment and this news to be a black pill. It's more of realism. And you've just got to make sure that you're using this information to the best of your abilities. But I will stress, me personally, based on the news I read and the things I've experienced as of recent, which I will get into details on, social cohesion is collapsing. The ability of our law enforcement to solve these problems no longer exists. And you know it. Again, I'm not saying this means the end of the world. I'm not saying that your life will become miserable. I'm saying these are things you need to know and understand. The summer of love. When far left extremists nearly burned down a church in front of the White House, tore the barricades down, forced the president into a bunker, no accountability. Federal law enforcement targeting political rivals of the current establishment political party, no accountability. Nancy Pelosi insanely requesting crew-served machine guns in Washington, D.C. Far left extremists vandalizing property. Accusations about the sabotage in North Carolina. Donald Trump, in this wild story, being accused of calling to terminate parts of the Constitution. Trump is, of course, denying it, but holy smokes. And on top of all of this, you know that we've dealt with swattings, harassment. There's a lot more that you don't know about. Very serious federal crimes that the law enforcement seemingly are not doing anything about. And so as I sit here reading the news every day, I thought to myself just a moment ago, I got off the phone with the lawyer, by the way, and I basically said the court system and law enforcement has become completely impotent. Elon Musk was speaking over the weekend, and he was asked about any kind of law enforcement actions that might, I should say, DOJ or investigatory or regulatory actions that might go against him. And he says, look, government's slow. Okay, they can't respond to this. And he's right. And so what I think we're seeing with the things I've experienced, and I'll get into a little bit of detail, some of it you already know, as we move through and talk about the civil conflict we're experiencing, I started to realize that the speed of information is such to a point the government bureaucracy cannot respond in any capacity. So what are we seeing? You may be wondering why it is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sitting member of Congress, was swatted so many times. No justice. It's because the government is unable to respond to the speed of information and technology. The people who are engaged in those swattings are faster than the government bureaucracy, so the government can't respond at all, neutering law enforcement's capabilities. You also have the fact the DOJ is weaponized against people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and to a lesser extent, but still, people like us. We've been swatted some 14 or 15 times, the bomb squad being deployed. And you may be wondering why, with multiple jurisdictions and multiple law enforcement agencies, we've not seen anything, heard anything, nor have we been contacted. Now, I've talked to some law enforcement, But my conclusion after all of this is there's no system anymore. Again, I mean, some people might take that and be like, it's the end of the world. No, I think the reality is social cohesion was an element. Law enforcement was an element of social cohesion. Civil litigation was an element of social cohesion. That people feared being shunned. People feared the courts coming after them. People feared law enforcement. Not anymore. Now it is ideologically driven, and so nothing the bureaucracy can do seemingly has an impact. But let's read the news. We'll talk about what Elon Musk is saying about a threat of assassination against him. And I'll talk to you about what that means as it pertains to everything I'm saying right now, and we'll vent a little bit. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member in order to support our work directly. Click that Join Us button, and you can get access to exclusive, uncensored, members-only shows from Timcast IRL podcast. We had a whole lot of fun this past week. We had some really interesting conversations, and of course, we have the behind-the-scenes green room show with Ye himself. So if you want to see what was going on at the Cast Castle when Ye was actually here before storming off the show, you can. And we have some more news pertaining to that will be coming up soon. We have you guys are gonna. I don't know if people are gonna be happy about it, but we've got more coming, and I can't say too much. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and let's read the story. The Daily Wire reports Elon Musk will not sign autographs ever again, as he warns assassination risk is quite significant. I want to show you this quick clip here. That's from Twitter. This is Marky Mark, DC celebrity, says exclusive. Elon Musk just landed at Dulles Airport and announced to the world he is done signing autographs. Maybe if he sees this, he can send me one. Let's play it. So I'll explain a little bit before he comes out. You can see security with a vehicle.
We're staying right here.
Elon,
we won't move, Elon, please.
We made a line, please. Elon.
20. Just 20.
Christmas.
Just for Christmas, 20.
To be clear, I'm not doing any more signings ever again.
After tonight.
No.
And that's it. He says, I'm not doing any more signings ever again. Now, in this video, he doesn't explicitly say that it's due to the assassinations. However, they say the news comes after Musk said during a chat on Twitter Spaces Saturday afternoon that the risk to his security has increased in recent months. Musk told listeners that he would definitely not be doing any open-air car parades. Let me put it that way. Frankly, the risk of something bad happening to me or even literally being shot is quite significant. It's not that hard to kill somebody if you wanted to. So hopefully they don't, and fate smiles upon the situation with me and it does not happen. There's definitely some risk there. Let's get personal. I tweeted this out. Someone broke into one of my properties this morning. We believe it was two men. I don't know the full details. I've only been given a brief summary of what happened. Apparently, the men almost died because it is extremely stupid to break into a West Virginia property. As I described it on Twitter, after nearly being struck by a 9mm round, the individuals, I'll keep the details slim as law enforcement is currently involved or whatever. The individuals fled, and there was minor pursuit, my understanding. And, they're fortunate to be alive after breaking into the property. I don't know exactly why they did or exactly what happened. Everyone is fine. No one was hurt. Unfortunately for me, there is a bullet hole in my kitchen. So be it. This comes about a week or 2 weeks after a bunch of extremists were posting my address online relentlessly, particularly on Twitter, but also on Reddit. This may be a random occurrence. I kind of don't think so, but I don't know. All I can do is tell you that we have a big construction project going on. It's a large property, and for some reason, this happened. I don't know exactly what really. All I have is the ancillary reports. I was not there, but it did happen. At the same time, there are many other legal matters and criminal matters that are affecting us here. And when I experience these things, you need to understand, of course, there's my personal perspective bias. But I also want to point out there's yours as well. And that means I could be wrong about everything, and I'm probably wrong about a lot. But it also means that you or others could be wrong about a lot of things, and probably are as well. What I'm trying to say is, I'll put it this way. Obviously, in my line of work, we deal with physical threats. We deal with criminal actions made against us over and over again. And in my experience, in every circumstance, it has become apparent that the court system is incapable of actually dealing with these issues. Now, I won't go into full specifics for security reasons, but I can tell you the gist of that story. I can also tell you that we don't report a lot of this stuff. We don't report the swattings that have been consistent. I think I mentioned, 14, maybe 15 at this point. Many people say, Tim, don't talk about it because, it's just going to make it worse. Makes me wonder. We don't. We try not to because we don't want it to happen. We don't want the swattings to happen. We don't want the threats. We don't want the assassinations or attempts or anything like that. We've had a couple credible threats made against us. When I was in Nashville, we had a serious credible threat with a suspect actually detained and a warning that the police believed it was a legitimate threat against my life, and therefore we had to cancel an event. Nashville. Did I say Nashville? Yeah. It sucks, but it's reality. So, Elon Musk certainly has it worse than I do. But one thing I've learned from all of this is when a crime is committed, the courts can't do anything. They literally can't. When you're dealing with the internet and multiple law enforcement agencies, they're unable, unwilling, and they can't do anything. Furthermore, when you're dealing with ideological extremists, a court order is meaningless, and law enforcement can't or is unwilling to do anything about it. Further, the legal system can be weaponized in either direction. So here's what I see. A moment ago, I got a phone with a lawyer. Like, seriously, I'm trying to work here, and I have to do these phone calls. And they offer up these nonsensical, legally minded, just garbage responses. File this, file that, petition this, petition that. And I say, someone broke through the window, climbed in, and I'll keep the details a little bit more vague, because again, law enforcement actively investigating. I'm not going to give out too many details. But a bullet hole in my kitchen, and the things being offered up to me are completely meaningless. That's where we're currently at. We can see with Elon Musk, when he puts out this story, what happens? All of the journalists march in lockstep, saying the exact same things. It's apparent. It's right in front of our eyes. The next story is going to release may be a bit more serious. Hard evidence that the Biden team was working with Twitter to censor users. We have, from the post-millennial, Katie Hobbs, in an election, was in contact with Twitter to censor posts. And during this campaign, during the election cycle, a conservative was actually suspended from Twitter. Their ability to communicate with the public and bypass the press shut down. Katie Hobbs was working with Twitter to censor information. Am I to assume she wasn't involved in whatever those decisions were? What's the remedy? Carrie Lake, she tweeted that she filed a lawsuit before the election saying that these tabulators are prone to failure. It was rejected on standing. Now that the election happened and there was tabulator failure, now her legal team is being censured or sanctioned or something to that effect for even daring to bring up this issue. The court system is supposed to solve these issues. It's not. So I'll tell you what I see. And then I'll elaborate on the point I was making earlier about either of us being wrong, what I meant by that. I see Carrie Lake doing everything reasonable to make sure that a fair election takes place. And the courts are unable to do anything about it. In my life, I, of course, see a heightened level of threat. I see from crimes being committed more so than any of you would. And so here's what I hear. A lot of people saying that I'm out of touch. Of course I would think these things. Of course I would think civil war. I'm in this position, so I'm at risk, and I see the risk, and I'm living it, so I see this as the world. True. 100% fair. But I'm not just looking at myself. I'm looking at exactly what happened with Carrie Lake. She files a lawsuit saying, hey, this is a known issue. They say, get out of here. You can't sue for that. Election happens. The exact issue occurs. She says, okay, I'm back with my lawsuit as I already tried to address. And they say, how dare you question this? This is the problem. There is no legal remedy. And extends beyond that. Elon Musk warning of the threats against his life or the potential risk to his life. I, of course, am experiencing something similar. And we are actively seeing either intentional sabotage of critical infrastructure, or as the left believes, anti-drag event saboteurs taking out the power grid. Now, of course, This story is a bit more silly, to be completely honest. Leftists spreading a conspiracy theory that right-wing terrorists were behind the power substation vandalisms in Moore County, so says Andy No. Right, there's no evidence. The police did question some individuals involved and said, we don't think they have anything to do with it. And I'll read that story in a second. But this is something I pointed out a while ago. Do you think that people on the left, upon seeing this story, have the reasonable reaction of, it's probably not true, we should wait for the evidence? Or do you think they say to themselves, it has to be true, I know they're doing it? Yeah, that's what I think. I'll tell you why. We get swatted a lot. We don't say anything. People get mad at us. Don't talk about it, Tim. You're just trying to get attention. Don't tell people it's happening. Well, at first I said, no, I think people need to understand the threats that we're facing. But at a certain point, people get it. They understand. And so I say, well, the security companies handle it. We won't report this. What happens then? The left comes out with fabricated stories or conspiracy theories about what's happening, and the media reports it and regular people see it. And then people on the right, independents, libertarians, or, people like us, say, well, we're not going to talk about it because then people will think we're trying to get attention and will only make the problem worse. What happens? If you do not talk about the threats, the violence, the crimes, the only thing the media reports, and it's still true regardless of what you say, but the only thing that makes it out into the world is that the far left, the leftists, are under attack by evil right-wingers. But the right never talks about it. The ADL said that Ben Shapiro was like the biggest target of anti-Semites and Nazis. Ben doesn't talk about it. I mean, most of us don't care. It's not the conversation we're trying to have. But the reality is this. The amount of crime, like if I were able to disclose the crimes actively committed against me and against us, you'd crap your pants. And guess what? While we are in talks with some law enforcement, they typically just do nothing. So that's why I put out the tweet about the burglary this morning. It's not the first time we've been burglarized, and it comes around right after the time that someone was posting my address all over the place. And I will stress the address being posted, I don't live at. And, I tweeted about it, and I talked to some people. I said, I think I'm better off tweeting something immediately because I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want anyone getting hurt. But if you break into one of these properties, you are lucky if you get out alive. And this is what happened. Keeping the details vague, a 9mm bullet is lodged in my kitchen. Simply put, that was this morning. Law enforcement was on scene. The only problem is that for the past 2 years, the people that have been harassing and attacking us, we've reported. How is it still possible that these things are happening? Where is law enforcement to do anything? Let me talk about this story. And I know I hate to bring it, the stuff that happened to me up and make it a bit more of a personal story. I tend not to not to want to do that. But it's kind of shocking when you wake up with panicked phone calls from construction crew and others saying there's a bullet hole in your kitchen. To put it simply, let me tell you about what happened in North Carolina. They say vandals wielding firearms are suspected of causing a major power outage across North Carolina County that has plunged tens of thousands of customers into darkness and amid freezing temperatures, according to authorities. Evidence of sabotage was found at 2 key electrical substations following the massive blackout Saturday night, prompting the Moore County Sheriff's Office to investigate the incident as a criminal occurrence. A state of emergency was declared in Moore County on Sunday, and a county-wide 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew was imposed Sunday night. Moore County Sheriff Ronnie Fields told ABC News the curfew will be extended to Monday night. Jeff Brooks, spokesman for Duke Energy, the local public utility, said 2 electrical substations were severely damaged in the attacks and much of the equipment will have to be replaced. He said it could be until Thursday until power is completely restored. Andy No highlights that leftist personalities are claiming, for some unknown reason, the fascists wanted to stop a drag show in North Carolina, so they shot up multiple power substations and knocked out power to 40,000 people to prevent the show from happening. This is terrorism. Yeah, that's insane. There's no evidence for it. There's no reason to believe that, but that's what they believe. I'll tell you why. Timcast.com. Full disclosure, the initial headline was fairly inaccurate. We updated, issued a correction. It initially said drag show protesters suspected by police after intentional vandalism. I requested the news team clarify this. It was an error. They said there are no suspects. They simply questioned someone for stating they knew what happened. Here's what happened. Emily Grace Rainey wrote on Facebook, "The power is out in Moore County and I know why." According to the Daily Beast, around the same time, she posted a photo of the Sunrise Theater, the venue holding the sold-out drag show, using the caption, "God will not be mocked." When police visited Rainey, she said, "I told them that God works in mysterious ways and is responsible for the outage. I used the opportunity to tell them about the immoral drag shows and the blasphemies screamed by its supporters. I told them God is chastising Moore County, thanked them for coming, and wished them a good night. Thankful for the LEO's service as always." In a follow-up post, Rainey said she spoke with police and was sorry they wasted their time. It appears the real story is that a religious individual was saying, "I know why this happened." And it wasn't any kind of statement of fact. It was a moral religious pontification. God must be doing this. Sure, believe what you want. But they think some human did it. Call it whatever you want. Seeing this story, once again, how about this? I love saying if I go the back in time, if I went back in time, 2015, and said, a couple years after Donald Trump lost his re-election campaign and many of his supporters and prominent individuals accused foreign interference and fraud in the election, about 1,000 or so individuals stormed the Capitol building, leading to high-profile extreme tensions where you had Nancy Pelosi calling for crew-served machine guns in Washington, D.C. A man gets shot twice in the chest in 2020. Billions of dollars in rioting damage, dozens dead. Thousands of people storming the barricades of the White House, setting fire to the church and forcing the president into the bunker. Among other things, a power substation is shot up and the grid is knocked down. The left is accusing the right of trying to stop drag shows for children. Hold on. What? Yeah, and Elon Musk is worried they're going to assassinate him because he released documents proving the government was colluding with big tech to suppress information during an election. Wait, what? Come on, who would believe it? Who would believe it, man? But we're here. I tell you what. In a time of ideological extremism, the courts are powerless. A bunch of people are protesting in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices. Tain't nothing being done about it. Pro-life activists, however, are getting arrested for, reading a prayer in front of a Planned Parenthood or something like that. Some of these individuals were arrested because they went inside and then left, and are accused, it is being claimed that they obstructed the entrance by entering the building. Perhaps. But I would be willing to entertain that law if these people protesting in front of judges' homes was also being entertained. It's not. They're allowed to keep doing it. They've kept doing it despite the fact someone showed up trying to kill one of the sitting Supreme Court justices. Now, where are the men of action? And I don't mean just men. I mean the humans. Where are the Supreme Court justices to do anything to try and protect their own lives? Seemingly nowhere to be found. Someone tried to kill a sitting Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh. Where's any kind of action? So I take a look at all of those things. And to me, it's just this. I think the breakdown speaks to civil war. But as I've long said, if you think that warfare stays the same, you're wrong. We know that there's multiple generations of warfare. Now we're hearing that someone vandalized power substations. I believe the theory was that they were shooting at it. Let me see if I have the post from the police. Moore County Sheriff Ronnie Fields reports that the mass power outage across the county is being investigated as a criminal occurrence. Several different communities across Moore began experiencing power outages. Utilities company responded to substations. Evidence was discovered that indicated it was intentional vandalism. So I don't think they're explicitly saying someone was shooting at it, but that appears to be the rumor that's going around. I'm not entirely sure, but someone vandalized multiple substations. Why? Well, I don't know. But it does seem more like something Antifa would do than anything else. I don't see right-wingers being like, this one location's doing bad, better go to a substation. That's more Antifa's MO. There were those accounts. There was a news outlet, they call it, that was advising people on how to sabotage trains and derail them. Twitter banned them, I think, and Patreon did too. So when you're talking about sabotage and industrial sabotage and infrastructure sabotage, doesn't sound like something the right does. But think about this. Are they going to find out who did this? I doubt it. That's what I was saying about the legal apparatus, law enforcement, the courts are unable to do anything about what's happening. And that's always been the case. People like to say, in 2018, when I was talking about civil war, these conservatives were like, Tim, it could never happen. The security state wouldn't allow it. I'm like, are you nuts? 16 guys could coordinate all over the country and totally disrupt this country. Like 2 guys blocking a highway could shut down the spread of goods. 1 Antifa could derail a train. That's how fragile the system is. Train gets derailed. What if you had 16 guys? What if you had 32? What if you had 5,000? These people organize on social media. They can coordinate actions the government cannot respond to in real time. So they're neutered. They're useless. Case in point, the swattings. You mean to tell me a sitting member of Congress, granted, they don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they can't figure out who's doing this? Now, some suggest they don't want to figure it out. That I would believe. But I think the reality is also that they can't. I've long thought about it. What would happen if, I won't describe the system, but many of you IT people already understand. What would happen if someone used a remote access device through a Russian proxy to control a computer, to make a phone call or something like that? How would you track that? And this is what apparently, in our circumstance with the swattings, some of which they're claiming, that when they do, trace back a lot of this criminal activity, it just goes to China or Russia, and then it stops there, and they can't figure out, from there we have no access to this information. I'll tell you what I see. I see Donald Trump coming out with, I got to be honest, a ridiculous statement. Let me see. Do they have the quote? Let me see if they have the quote from Trump. Trump goes on to say, blah, 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 with the election results of 2020. What do? Do you declare the rightful winner in all caps, or do you have a new election? Trump can't get over 2020. And I get it. It doesn't matter if you think he's right, if you think he's wrong. What matters is Donald Trump says that they don't have the exact quote. Trump didn't call for terminating the entire Constitution. He says something of termination of rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone, blah, blah, blah. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, violated the Constitution in a corridor from D.C. up to Pennsylvania because they were cut off. Maryland was a slave state. Despite the fact that Maryland favored the Union and ultimately joined the Union, they still had slave state sentiments, and the federal government went and arrested a bunch of state reps. The Constitution was basically void during the Civil War. Donald Trump clarified he's not saying to get rid of it. He's saying some of the elements of it. I don't care if your opinion is for or against what Trump is saying. What I am telling you is that we are at this point. Social cohesion no longer exists. First, there were religious morals holding things together. People had a fear of something beyond. Now in Canada, in Europe, you have euthanasia. No one fears state-sanctioned suicide. In the United States, you have political ideologues and zealots who think they're fighting some kind of, and I mean this figuratively, holy war against fascists or whatever. Thus, they are fearless of court action. The courts actually can't do anything about much of this stuff. Law enforcement can't either. So what do we end up seeing? The only law enforcement action that we're actually seeing is weaponization of law enforcement against people like Donald Trump. Private citizens struggle to get anything done. Videos circulate across the internet of people raiding Walgreens, Target, CVS, to the point where these businesses are shutting down. Video of a man walking out of Home Depot with a shopping cart, shoving an 83-year-old man to the ground, killing him. It just keeps happening. In New York, the Jewish community is being brutally beaten in the streets by people playing this game, I guess, the knockout game or whatever it's called. This kind of stuff's happening all over. The Constitution was basically suspended by several Democratic governors during COVID, and now they're attacking Trump for saying he wants special rules. Look, man, I'm not here to tell you about what's good or what's bad or what's real or what's a white pill, what's a black pill, what happens in the future. I'm here to tell you these things are happening and to consider it. Me? I ain't mad. I'm not crying about it. I am not stressed out. It's a reality I accept. And in fact, it's kind of freeing, you know? It's frustrating when you think law enforcement and the courts are going to rectify these problems, and they don't. And you're like, I don't understand. You know, these people are committing crimes. They're admitting to doing it online. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And they just need to realize you best start believing in Civil War stories because you're in one. It's a nightmare dystopia where in Canada and Europe, they're euthanizing people. And in Canada, they want it available for mature minors. Yeah, it's right in front of our eyes. Vandalism of power substations. That's what they're saying. We don't know who did it or why. Infrastructure is now being attacked. People have been shot. Riots have been happening. If you have sat by and watched all of this happen and think that nothing's really going on, I think you just want to believe what you want to believe. Me, I can't tell you. You know, I think some kind of civil war, but I think it's probably, as I stated before, more like what happens in Syria, where social cohesion breaks down, disparate factions start fighting each other, and who knows what's really going on. Let me ask you, when you saw what happened with Ye, did you think this is normal? Or did you think, how does this happen? When you see what happens with Elon Musk buying Twitter, these are not normal times. But maybe this is the natural state of the world. Social cohesion is broken. The social contract doesn't exist. What's happening now is the raw exercise of power, and the only consideration is whose power you have to consider before taking action. To put it simply, the federal government and law enforcement agencies have power, but it's limited. And with the limitations of that power, the vacuum has emerged. And from this, you now start to see disparate factions, Antifa marching with rifles, shooting and killing people, setting fire to the church in front of the White House, no accountability. Rioting in 2017, destroying vehicles, smashing windows. In fact, they won millions from the city. I believe that's the result of that case from Trump's inauguration. So looking at all of this, I am not, again, I stress, saying this to get you down. I'm saying it as look at that. I live in West Virginia. Couple people, there's more than one, reportedly, I'm saying reportedly because this is coming from the secondhand, I wasn't there, broke into my house, and I'll keep things vague. A 9mm bullet is lodged in my kitchen. And, I see a lot of people in West Virginia, a lot of comments saying like, make my day, and things like don't miss next time, and things like you need to go to the range to practice. And I'm like, guys, I wasn't there. But this is what I see. I don't think the police will do anything about it. I don't think they can. Crimes like this have been happening to us consistently, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it because we're warned that we'll make it worse by doing so. But I had the opposite idea. I got scared when I heard that there was a 9mm bullet lodged in my kitchen, and I said, do these people not understand? This is a castle doctrine state, and with the death threats against us, we are not going to... There is nothing but fearing for our lives. If someone breaks into... I don't want to say too much. Breaks into the property. The only response from any one of our personnel is going to be, this must be them acting upon the death threats. And these people who come here, if law enforcement was doing their job, we wouldn't have to worry about it. And I don't blame them. They're underfunded and incapable. They've been demoralized, and there's nothing they can do. The government can't file the paperwork fast enough. Not to mention, the FBI has been weaponized and is unwilling to take any action. But let me just stress this right now. To the law enforcement agencies that failed to do anything about this over the past 6 months, I don't know what's going on. I don't necessarily blame you if your hands are tied and you're unable to figure this one out. If you're incapable of stopping it, that's just the reality. But I hope everyone understands where we're at now. These guys could have died. More importantly, our people, my people, could have died. I don't know who these people were. We don't want that to happen. Law enforcement can't do anything about it. That's the reality. We have armed security, I'll put it that way. A lot of them. Where I see this going, Elon Musk does too. I see it going to dark places. Very dark places. So again, maybe it's my personal perspective. Maybe it's because quite literally I woke up in this morning to hearing there's a bullet lodged in my kitchen. Maybe you don't experience that stuff. But in the political fray, this is what's happening. I look around the world and I think maybe this is the natural state of things. Raw exercise of power. I hope no one tries coming to these properties again, and that's why I decided to tweet about it. I want to make sure it's clear. I don't want anyone hurt. But the people here are operating under an extreme amount of death threats, doxing threats, and criminal activity. And the only thing anyone here can do is assume the death threats are being followed through upon. They're following through with the threats that are being claimed. So when you break in, I'm not surprised the immediate response is an adrenaline rush and fear that this could be it, the moment that someone is going to try to kill one of us. Where does it go in the next couple of years? Let me ask you, do you think things calm down? With Donald Trump running for office and saying that certain elements of the Constitution, certain rules will be terminated, even those found in the Constitution. Do you think things are de-escalating or escalating? Honest question. In my view, I think it's getting worse. Why? Well, aside from the point that Donald Trump just made about terminating some of the constitutional rules, there's a bullet lodged in my kitchen. So yeah, there's a bunch of other security things that we've enacted. I can't say for obvious reasons, but you would be surprised to learn how some people live. I can certainly tell you some other stuff. Vaguely. Some of your most favorite individuals you don't know have fled the cities, and some fled the country. I'm not going to say who, but some people have already fled the country and not informed anyone. Some people only recently informed people they fled the country. I think that's something you should know. For obvious security reasons, I'm not going to say who and I'm not going to say where, but I certainly know for a fact that some of your favorite personalities are in remote locations in hiding while still operating online as though everything is fine. Don't know where we go, man. I ain't running from it. We're just doing what we can. But I think Elon Musk brought up that point about government being slow to act. I talked about it a bit in the morning, but I decided to talk more in depth about the current state of things. Maybe it'll come up tonight. I don't know. I'm tired of people saying, just grin and bear it. Ignore it. And I'm like, guys, it's getting worse. This is happening. And it could just be your standard celebrity BS. Fine. But all the celebrities live in Hollywood. People generally know that there's houses up on the hills full of wealthy individuals, industry execs, and celebrities. Guardians of the Galaxy did a holiday special where they jokingly got a map of the stars' houses and they go to Kevin Bacon's house. And he's like, sorry, guys, you got to leave. And I'm like, these people aren't armed. You can't be armed. They probably have armed security. In the political world, though, we're well beyond that degree. So we'll see. It's the only thing I can really say, right? Let me know what you think. And we'll talk about it more later tonight. It's the holidays. I'm not trying to drag you down. Now, I'm not freaking out about it. In fact, to be completely honest, I like actual conflict and war so substantially worse. The worst stuff I've seen. But I've got people who work for me, work with me. I've got family members who, let's just say, are very, very upset. I've warned them. What do you think is going on? There are people who want to say, Tim Civil War Pool, he's lying. He's wrong about this stuff. Sure. Elon Musk won't do signings, is surrounded by bodyguards because he fears assassination and says the risk is real because he released documents proving government collusion to subvert an election. What do you think that point means? Hey, have a good day, though. Enjoy yourself a nice burger. when I was in Egypt during the revolution, 2 blocks away from Tahrir Square, I remember seeing a dude at McDonald's eating a cheeseburger and watching soccer. And I thought, it's interesting times. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.